Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Employee branding is a new twist in employee engagement and identity. It shapes the behavior of the employees so that they can project the brand identity in their daily activities. The core idea is to transform your employees into brand ambassadors to present your brand in the best possible light. It depends greatly on the reach of your employees on social media. Suppose they have great reach, then brand engagement becomes that much easier. They can share your notifications, which ends up getting more engagement. And sometimes new customers. As a whole, it positively impacts your company culture and attracts top talents. Hello listeners, welcome to the Vantage Influencers Podcast. I am your host Gautam. In today's episode, we will enlighten you on how employee branding helps improve company culture. To shed light on this significant topic, we have with us Mr. Sarang Brahme. Sarang is the head of employee branding for ShareChat. He brings in over 19 years of experience across various sectors. Before ShareChat, he was program manager, candidate experience, and employee branding. For someone with such immense experience, is the best person to enlighten us on employee branding and how it helps improve company culture. In the past, Sarang has also globally led an agenda to attract and hire top talent, engage the target talent pool through talent branding, and provide a great first experience for talent to work with. He also led digital transformation agenda for new global recruiting system on talent attraction, career site, and analytics. Hello, Sarang. Welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Gautam. Thank you so much for having me.
So, we are surely delighted to have you with us today. And thank you so much for agreeing to lend your voice to our listeners. And I'm looking forward to a great conversation. And so to begin with, please tell us something about yourself, something that I might have missed mentioning.
Well, no, I think you kind of covered it in your introduction. I'm someone who joined recruitment and employer branding accidentally, while that's not my education background, but I'm really passionate into attracting talent and positioning the brand of company as an employer brand, and let that be a shining voice of why someone should join the company. So, yeah, I think you've covered it.
Cool. Thank you so much. And since you are the head of employee branding for ShareChat, and our topic today is also surrounded within employee branding and company culture. So I would like to ask you, like in your words, what exactly is employee branding?
Correct. So I think it's sometimes we say employer branding and employee branding. Mm-hmm. And obviously employer branding is about employee branding, or popularly known as talent branding, is about employee or talent. More and more, I think the world has shifted to talent branding, because if a company is good or not really based on the image and perception of employees and candidates. And that's why moreover of what employer is saying, I think it's also becoming more important about what employees and candidates are experiencing. And and that's why I think employee or talent branding is kind of becoming important, because it's really the authentic voice more than just advertisement.
Wow, thank you so much, Sarang, for letting our listeners know as to what employee branding means to you. But when we talk about company success or business success, how does employee branding help businesses succeed?
So I think the context of how businesses are becoming successful has changed over the past few years. It's not just about machines and processes and efficiencies. I think it's also becoming more important about the innovation, the kind of value that they bring into customers, so it's a paradigm shift from efficiency to experience, right? And I think today people play an important role in that whole paradigm. I mean, yes, you have the greatest of tools and machines and engagement and all of that, but it's really important to see how your employees are adding value. How is their experience building the customer experience at the end of the day, right? So if you are looking for a great customer experience, you have to provide amazing experience to employees as well, because they are on the front line delivering to your customers. And if they are taken care of, if they are being heard, if they are being having a great experience, if they are growing and they are really becoming advocates of a brand to their network, then I think it also has a positive impact on recruitment, attraction, retention, internal growth. You end up hiring people who are not just left out in the market, but you are really able to hire the top talent. You are able to retain talent, because if employees start to connect with your brand and company, and they have built that sense of belonging, then that passes on as a viral effect to others, and then that's how great cultures are built, right? So if a company has a great culture, great experience, then that will reflect into the voices, what people are sharing externally, and then that also becomes the brand. I mean, nowadays, the health of a company is not just about the financial results, but also health of your employee happiness or employee experience.
Definitely.
If your if the culture is toxic, if your employees are not having great time, then howsoever profits, P&L, top line, bottom line growth that you're doing, if that's not reflected from an employee side standpoint, then it's not a sustainable growth that we'll have. At some point of time, it will break down, because obviously today it's an employee driven market, and employees will find another place where they can be heard and they can be taken care of. So I think people, we always say, are the biggest asset. Well, I mean, if then in that case they need to be taken care of, and their views today becomes more influential than what employer themselves might say from their own advertising campaigns. And then that's how the authenticity is also built in, so that what employer is saying that and what employee is saying, if that matches, then that means it's one voice and not different voices, which obviously people won't believe externally. So yeah, I think they have an enormous role to play in the success of business in the long term as well.
Thank you so much, Sarang, for that response. I think, when you say that employees must be valued, and, we have to take care of everything that goes around in order to, build that company culture that's also equitable and also that is not toxic, but there are so many things that, when it comes to employee branding, like, when we say that we want employees that speak good about our company, that speak always the best, and for that we also need to give the best. So, in that scenario, what are the best ingredients to create the best employee branding recipe is what I would ask you.
So I think I honestly feel that you can't create a good employer brand. Employer brand or employee brand is a merely reflection of what is the truth inside. It's like a glass door. If as an organization, if you're providing amazing experiences, that's how it will reflect externally. If you're not providing them great experience, it won't reflect. So number one is to really keep going back on authenticity, to provide a really good value from a growth, career perspective. And now with pandemic and, future of work, there's a whole different paradigm shift in terms of what we call today a good, work experience, or what kind of new work models that are coming in, and what are the really expectations of employees. I think that's important. First is to really understand what are those expectations. So are you listening to them, or are you just assuming that they want something and this is what we should do? So I think continuous listening is important. Then secondly, using analytics to really understand what is the correlation between what they are saying versus the results that are coming in. So are you having attrition in some part because of some issues, some challenges? People are not having good views about company because there are some underneath challenges. So solve that. And then as a third thing is to look at amplifying that effect through power of people voices. So identify your internal brand ambassadors. You might already have some influencers or people who are greatly connected. See if you can work with them. There's always a question of what's in it for them. So create that what's in it for them so that they don't just feel this is another corporate duty as part of job description, which is not, and they won't do it just because it's someone have told them. So create that environment, those guidelines, simple things like social media guidelines, what they should talk about company, what they shouldn't, and reward the right behavior. Identify who's doing the right things, make them famous, become them role models, and then try and look at others. And more importantly, even before that, I would say, is get your leadership on this bus. They are the front face of the business in the market. They need to be vocal. They need to share stories of how are they improving the company culture, what is their contribution, what the employer brand stands for. I mean, are you clear of what is your positioning, employer value proposition? Why people should join and stay? Do you have good enough storytelling, good enough narrative? So do that. Also use internal communication. So employer branding starts internally. Externally, people will see the tip of the iceberg, but it really starts internal with leadership, with your own employees, with internal engagement, internal communications, and then slowly it starts to show externally, organically, because people will say the same thing, what they are saying internally to external. You can't have two different facets or face of the business, right? So if you are experiencing the company really well, they will talk about it same externally. So, look at if you're doing pulse surveys, what are your scores in that? And then, what people say on Glassdoor or what people say on external forum, does that match? If not, maybe people are, then you need to do the course correction. If you know that your internal, engagement is amazing, people are happy, but maybe that's not the picture going out externally, then you need to make sure that these stories start to go out external with HR, business, leadership, marketing coming together and ensuring that there are the right channels, right content, and right engagement is being done. So, these are the few steps I would definitely recommend.
Wow, I think those were amazing because when you say that, it has to also start internally and assumptions should not be made. I think most of the leaders sometimes assume that, employee needs are basic. And what would employees want? Basic rewards and recognition and everything. But they fail to understand that, every employee has different needs. And, when it is communicated well and when there's no discrimination, when there's an equitable culture in the company, I think that will build a good employee branding is what I believe. And I don't know if you agree to that or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sure. I mean, that's great then. And, when we speak about assumptions, when we speak about communication, effective communication, when we speak about good listening, I think all of this helps build a good company culture that also attracts top talent and enhances retention. But do you think that employee branding also helps improve company culture?
So I think it's a bit of a chicken and egg. I don't think employer branding will improve the culture. I think it's the other way around. It's culture which improves the brand. So what is brand? Brand is the image and perception of what company is in the minds of employees and candidates. So I would just say it will give a magnifying effect to a good culture. And it will never fix a bad culture. If people are thinking that if I invest into employer branding, it will fix the bad culture that we have. No, that's not the case. It will, in fact, amplify 10x that bad culture. So it also has a risk to that, right? So start to happen, then it becomes a snowball effect, right? So if you have a good culture, if that's communicated internally, then that spreads like a snowball, right, into different departments. A lot of times there are amazing stories that a company will have about employees, what they have achieved, the impact that they would have made, even if it's about DI, it's about business stories, it's about the change and transformation that they have built. That needs to be told internally to all of the employees as well, and then suddenly you will start to find a change in perception of, oh, amazing, I mean, I never knew that we do this, I never knew that we venture into these kind of activities. And slowly that start to take a shape of them, what is my company brand and what is my view about the company. And then that will have a snowball effect externally, because they will start to talk about it externally, and then that further builds perception. And this is where I will again go back to my initial point of employee value proposition. I think it needs to be very clearly defined, articulated, and communicated from leadership, that this is what we have in offer in terms of why you should join and stay. This is a differentiating factor while working with us versus maybe our competition. And then it becomes a promise to them, saying we will deliver this. And then next thing is, okay, you have to deliver, then build proof points of it. So if we are saying that, like you said, we will give you a diverse and inclusive culture, by saying it just on employer branding doesn't really make sense. Then you have to find what really has happened. What are the proof points of it? What are the stories that will back that promise? And then start to communicate that internally and externally. And that's how slowly, and it's not a 2-minute Maggie, also you have to do that consistently, passionately, persistent across all the times, whether you are hiring or not. And obviously a lot of time the market is volatile, it goes up and down, but that should not impact your employer brand, because employer brand is a long-term investment into retention and attraction. So it should not just stop because, I don't have hiring needs. Then your employer branding is a very tactical method. It's not a strategic positioning for you, right? So yes, I mean, that's how I would see the culture, culture and branding like a duo that works really together. And this is a big responsibility for leadership to maintain that culture, to commit to that culture and deliver it, so that the perception and the image and what people think about your company start to build up.
True. I completely agree on that, because I think company culture can, frame a lot of things that you're wanting to, implement in your company, whether it is enhancing engagement, retention. I think culture is something that is at the forefront for every new joinee also.
Yes.
And for people also working in the company to tell to people that, this is what our culture is and this is why you should join us. And I think that is where employee branding, is already done. I mean, the first initial stage of it, that, the word of mouth process is already done. But when you said in the previous question that, employee feedbacks, and that, that is important. And I think feedback also enhances employee engagement to an extent where, they have a space to jot down their needs, to jot down the discomforts that they have in the company. And if they see that the company is working towards bettering them, I think that also helps, build a culture that is suitable for any person to work for or to work with. But when it comes to employee branding, does it also help enhance employee engagement?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, as I said, the first step of building an employee brand, talent brand or employer brand, is to listen to what your employees and candidates are saying as well in their interview experience, whether they are successful or not. So, in the entire life cycle of the employee journey, right from the time someone is aware of your company till the time they exit and become alumni. And all of that life cycle needs to be covered and is able to plug in those nudges where you are able to listen to them. So either you do candidate survey when they are in the recruitment process, you do employee survey when they are already in the company, you also do an alumni survey when they are in your alumni, right? So it's really important when you understand what they like, what they don't, and make it anonymous. And that's my very humble request, because if you ask them to name what they want, then it's always difficult, and it's a perception that HR kya kahega, or my manager kya kahega, and all of that. So make it anonymous. There are enough tools out there. There are enough listening tools out there. In fact, social media monitoring is also a good technique, where while you're not proactively asking them their feedback, you can also monitor social media on what people are saying about your company and gather if that chatter that goes out is positive, negative, what others say about you, what is the perception that they've got, and then try and find what are the improvement areas. Once that happens, then obviously it will help to improve the employee engagement as well. Because if your employees are engaged, if they find a sense of belonging, if they find that connection, the employee brand will automatically improve, because they are happy, they're able to connect with your brand. Right? I mean, a lot of people like Apple so much, right? I mean, without even asking, they will start to talk amazing things about Apple ecosystem. It's because that's the connection that the brand has been able to make with the users by giving them amazing experience. So likewise, even that can happen in the employee brand space as well, because they are already sharing a lot of photos, experiences externally on their LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, even without asking. And if that happens, that means you don't need to nudge them proactively, but they are already doing it because they feel that sense of connection and belonging. And obviously why that will happen is because they are feeling that engagement with the company, with management. Also, when you say engagement, it's not just with organization. Organization is I would say, little hazy concept, but it's also with the manager, with the peer, with the people around them, because at the end of the day, they are spending more time with their managers and peers. I mean, we all know the story of people leave managers and not companies, right? So it's important that leaders and people feel that it needs to be part of the intrinsic behavior, in a way that we work with people, we take care of them, they come first, and then the other things will follow, right? So yeah, I mean, absolutely. That needs to, as I said, that needs to go right from candidates, internal employees, and also alumni. Then a lot of time we'll get the similar feedback and similar reasons of why people love working with companies.
Great. I mean, that's great, Sarang. I think when you spoke about, keeping it anonymous, and, I think that also helps achieving a more honest response also, because I can say this from our personal experience, because Vantage Circle has its own, pulse feedback, pulse surveys that as a product. And so we use it amongst ourselves as well. I mean, though that our clients use it, but we use it amongst ourselves, and it is completely anonymous, and it doesn't give you that, hesitation that what would my manager think?
Yeah.
Or what would the HR think, or what would, if he gets to know that this is me, will he judge me? So, that sort of mentality goes away when it is anonymous, and I can completely agree with you on that. And on that note, I think you have been a great speaker for us to enlighten us on this topic, employee branding, because I think nobody else could have been this detailed, and we are surely delighted to have you with us today. But before we let you go, what are your concluding thoughts on employee branding, improving the overall company culture and helping businesses succeed?
Yeah, so just to sum it up, I'll again go back to very simple things. One is, don't think that employer branding or employer talent branding going to fix your bad toxic culture. That has to come intrinsically. It's an inside out, not an outside in thing. Just because we show happy smiling faces on career pages doesn't mean you actually got happy smiling employees, right? So that needs to be looked at first. Secondly, leadership plays such an important role. If they're not the torchbearers of this project, then it becomes very difficult to make it authentic and come from, become a strategic need and strategic positioning. Obviously, employer branding is also bottoms up approach where it's fueled by employees, but leaders provide that fuel, that inspiration, and that encouragement. Third is to make this a data-driven activity. So measure the impact of employer branding or employee branding on a lot of things like your reputation, your engagement and awareness of your brand. How does that impact on retention, attraction, recruitment, so that you know what areas work and what doesn't. And lastly, I would say passionately work on employee experience. Employee experience and employer brand to me are the two sides of the same coin. If you have great employee experience, then employee brand will kind of fall into place. It doesn't happen the other way around. So if you are providing amazing experiences, great career growth, direction, all of that, then I think those stories will automatically pop out, even if you're not doing marketing. And lastly, I would say just tactically, it's a team game. So it's not just HR or recruitment thing. It has to be a team game between leadership or business, HR or recruitment, marketing to amplify, and then find your voice in the employees or leadership who can help to amplify. And then there are other tons of tools. But yeah, as I said, it's an inside out thing. Culture and employee experiences are like enablers of that. So if you get that right, then it's become much more easier to get the employer branding right.
Thank you so much, Sarang. I think, you have given our listeners a lot to learn from. And even me, I was not very sure about employee branding because this was a bit of a new topic for me. Not that I do not know about it, but, I haven't gone, in depth. And I think for listeners who would want to know about employee branding is where they can, listen to you. And if at all, now that we're approaching towards the end of the show, if at all our listeners have to contact you, how can they reach out to you?
I'm there on most of the platforms. If you search for Sarang Brahme on LinkedIn, on Twitter, I'm there. I have my own blog as well called Talent Beats. I have my YouTube channel where I'm trying to become a bit of a content creator. I'm not so good at it, but I'm just trying. But yeah, you can always reach out to me through these sections, and I'll be happy to answer or guide if anyone wants any questions answered.
Sure. I think, our listeners would love to, join you for more insights and content. And we hope to see more content on YouTube as well. And thank you so much, Sarang, for joining us today. It was indeed a pleasure to have you with us. And we hope to stay in touch in the future as well. And we hope to get you back someday on our show.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Gautam. It was nice speaking with you. And let's catch up in the future.
Sure, thank you. And with this, we have finally come to the end of this episode. You just heard Sarang Brahme speak about employee branding, improving company culture. Stay tuned for such engaging podcasts only on Vantage Influencers Podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.